Hey everybody, here today with a good friend of mine, Mike Vandersanden.
Hello.
And he is in band
Ceres.
And I've said it about him wrong many times. That's why I pointed to him, let him tell you how to say it right. But they are one of Montana's premier metal bands. So we are extremely privileged to have him here, learn from his knowledge base and have him share some of his insights. So really happy to have you here.
That's incredibly flattering, Jake. I really appreciate it. And yeah, you're not the only one that doesn't say it right. I've heard every sort of like different permutation of that you can possibly imagine. So probably probably should have rethought about that before naming the band.
No, I've heard much worse. I think it's fantastic, especially with the logo you guys worked with. It's just fantastic.
I like.
You see that, you instantly know who it is.
Yeah. I feel like logo and brand recognition like that are super duper important for any artist up and coming. Like, if people don't know who you are, then how can they redirect to your website and your music? So.
Well, I just want to say I haven't got to the questions yet, and you're already sharing with our audience incredible knowledge. I need you to dial it back here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, incredible knowledge.
No, that's really great. So we'll just get right into it.
Sure.
A lot of people that kind of watch our program or listen to our podcast are trying their first time to get out and play music.
Okay.
And might be forming a band for the first time.
Which is so cool. What a cool and exciting prospect.
Yeah, I know,
so cool.
Right?
That's you, yes.
Get out there and do it. That's number one thing.
Absolutely.
But it can be a headache too and a real trial and error process.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you could share going through your process? What was that like for you guys putting a band together?
So, yeah, absolutely. Trial, error, and churn, I would say, are like three things that come to mind immediately. I feel like trying to find people, especially in a smaller town like where we live, is, difficult. And we play in a band that plays around regionally all over the place. So trying to find people that are willing to show up to practice and with the availability to travel and the same level of dedication that you have is tough. I think social media is a great way to find people. I met two band members on Craigslist. The joke is that we met on the casual encounter section, but we didn't. But I've met band members on there, and then also I've gone through on Facebook and seen like, oh, that guy's profile picture is him playing drums. Like, I'm gonna go check out his profile and check out his stuff and see if he's got something. That's how I met our current drummer Curtis. I Facebook stalked him and like sent him a message. So
that's awesome. What good advice that I never would have thought of, actually.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but you have to be uncomfortable to grow. So if trying to find members the way that you're trying to right now isn't working, you might not be doing something right. And so it's worth trying something new, even if it's uncomfortable.
Oh, that is amazing advice. So much great stuff in there. So being a musician and putting a lot of hard work, you're a fantastic guitarist.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. Thank you.
Was it hard for you to step out and put yourself out there like that?
Yeah, I feel like any kind of art, whether it be, physical media or performance art like music, it's a really vulnerable place to put yourself out there. It's a piece of yourself when you're out there playing. It's really exposed. And so, yeah, I would say that that's tough, but once you get out there and do it, like it's so fruitful, just for your soul, quote unquote. It just makes you feel really great.
No, yeah. So was there a point that you knew that you were ready for you guys to go out and perform, or what was that like?
So I feel like this could go one of two ways. Okay. I don't know that I ever would have felt ready without just doing it. So
that's so good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to like harken back to when I was in the service, but like I used to jump out of airplanes, and like you don't know that you can jump out of an airplane until the door opens and it's like, oh boy, here we go. This thing is happening right now. And yeah, I would encourage people, regardless of what your skill level is, to get out there and start performing. I've seen bands on tour coming through that I would describe as like 3 chords in a dream. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like pretty simplistic music, and simple can be good. Don't gatekeep yourself by trying to meet a certain expectation for yourself before getting out there.
Oh my goodness. That is we're only a couple minutes in, and what you're sharing is what a lot of people, especially even myself, some people just need to hear that kind of thing.
No, I agree. And it's so difficult to be vulnerable with music. I feel like it's something that even if you're playing live a lot, and I'm not playing, live every single night or anything like that. I'm lucky to play with a band that plays pretty frequently, but anytime you play live, you're putting yourself out there.
Okay, so you decided to step out and you were comfortable with that. You took that plunge.
Mm-hmm.
So you're out there playing shows. How did you start to develop a fan base and get people to get a following?
Yeah, so that's really difficult. I feel like in the age of social media where there's so much noise, and so many different avenues where you have to market in a specific way. The way that you would market to Facebook or Instagram is much different than how you would attack TikTok. We've been fortunate to like all the money that we make as a band, we put directly back into the band. So into equipment and into advertising and things like that. And sometimes you got to spend money to make money. And so we definitely advertise actively on platforms when we have events and things like that coming up. I'm sorry, what was the rest of the question?
Oh, just learning about you building a fan base. What about in shows? Like anything you guys do special like during shows?
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize. Yeah, so like engaging with fans is huge. Whether you're a chef or anything else, people want to feel connected to you when they're engaging in what you've made, whether that be food or whatever. So I feel like making sure that you're engaging with fans and playing live shows. You can't get fans without playing live shows. I know a lot of people are really into just having recording projects, and I felt like that's what I wanted to do initially with Ceres, was just have it be a recording project. But there's just so much noise out there, and musically there's so many other people out there and incredibly gitalented, talented musicians out there doing that kind of stuff. You're just static against that.
When you started out as maybe a studio project with this group, and then did you kind of enjoy, or have you shifted now your focus more to enjoying live performance over?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like part of being in a band is making music, but another part of being in a band is finding a sense of community amongst other people. And for me, that's really important, the vibe of a group that you're working with.
Yes.
What I mean? So we write music that I really enjoy, but even if it's something that I didn't particularly like or a part that I didn't like, it helps me work in a more collaborative way to be able to backseat that and say, hey, this is more about the experience of hanging out with my friends and making music versus this is my vision and I need everything to be exactly how I predetermined it to be.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That does. That completely makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Let's just maybe take a second here to. Can you tell us about the band? Just maybe the guys. Just tell us about, since they couldn't be with us today. Tell us about the guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul Gluckert, our lead singer, he's an amazing guy. He went to college on an opera scholarship.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, no, it's totally weird thing. So like he's got a really killer set of pipes, and also he went to, I think, Full Sail and got a degree in audio engineering through there. And he's an amazing audio engineer.
Dangerous individual.
I know.
Wow.
He plays guitar, he plays drums, he sings, he plays mandolin. He's just one of those guys. You know Justin Milken, obviously.
This is Justin honestly,
Milken from.
I'm going to bring him up a little bit later. Actually, it's just funny you mentioned.
Okay, yeah, that's so funny.
He is one of the best bass players I've ever met in my life.
He's one of the most talented individuals I have ever heard of. Whenever I talk to anybody about Justin, he's playing with Trent Brooks Band right now.
And they're killing it.
He does everything and with so much feel and such accuracy and veracity.
He's an artist through and through.
Paul is very similar to that in that Paul can just.
A lot.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope that they both take that as a compliment. But they're both just really amazing individuals. And Jeff, our bass player, he's got so much live experience playing throughout the year. The same thing with Dan. Dan's grown up playing live music and doing music, and our drummer Curtis played in a lot of bands down in Arizona and did like the tour circuit down there and stuff with like popular pop punk name droppy bands and stuff. So it's really cool. I'm really thankful to be surrounded by really talented people that have spent time honing their craft and learning what they wanted to do and set expectations for themselves for what their music is,
and it shows in your guys' final product. It really does.
Really kind. Thank you.
Just speaking the truth here.
Well, that's very kind. I feel like we try and put a lot of time and effort into it, and hopefully that shows.
Well, it does. I mean, and we coming from a small rural area and where kind of the areas we live, you can really tell when a polished product is coming out that somebody put effort into and years into of their life. It's a culmination of
That's
what's happening.
very kind.
It's just, you can tell, and it really comes across.
That is super, super kind to say. And it's also really encouraging. It's also really cool, though, from the outside perspective, to see other bands that you can tell that they've really put the time in and their set is tight and they look good on stage and they're working together as a team. And yeah, I wish nothing but luck to those kind of bands.
Exactly.
Dragged Out here in Montana is one band that immediately comes to mind.
Yep.
Those guys are they're amazing people and work together really well as a group, and the music is just fantastic.
Yeah, they set the bar for a lot of
absolutely fantastic guys.
Awesome. So just to pick your brain, since you've been through a lot of this and you've been out there, hitting feet on the ground, doing the work, a lot of people who are trying to get out there, one of the big hiccups they run into is trying to book themselves, get their first gig.
Yeah, sure.
Can you talk about that? Like, what is it like getting your shows? How do you get booked? What's that like?
So I've got some experience in this as a new band, but also booking a tour and stuff. Pre-COVID, I booked an entire West Coast tour that got shut down a week before we were supposed to leave. Goodness. It's all those hours spent, booking everything. In terms of playing locally, which I think should be your first goal if you're a new musician starting out, go to different shows, go to venues and connect with other musicians. That's how we got our first show in Missoula. You can absolutely get a show without that. Reach out to venues, email venue owners. Don't contact them on Facebook, I would say, because lots of people don't like that. Don't contact their personal Facebook or anything like that. But reach out to venue owners through their website. Usually they'll have a booking person. And I would come with a whole night prepared. So not just, hey, we're this band and we're here available for a bill, because they get, how many bands doing that? What makes you different or
exactly
special?
How you stand
Send an
out.
EPK, for sure.
Right.
But
that's an electronic press kit for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, but I would say build an entire bill and then approach a venue with that and say, hey, would you like to do a night with these 3 bands we already have set up? And then you can come to them with more of a proposal. You don't have to know exactly what you're doing to do that. It can be pretty lax, and you can just say, hey, I'm such and such from this group or individual artist, and I'd like to play at your venue. Do you have any evenings free? I've set up, these people are willing to play on this day, and this is typically what we would charge. I would say go that way. That's a great way to get your foot in the door if you don't have connects. But go out to shows first and foremost and talk to people that are in bands and let them know who you are.
Wow, thank you. It's a lot of stuff that people need to know about. So it's a great insight. So let's talk about, as you've been doing this, you've probably gone through some hiccups, had some things not go your way.
Sure.
What are some of the growing pains you've gone through, and what would you, if you were to talk to your younger self, what's some advice you would tell yourself, like, hey, maybe don't do this or do this?
So I feel like this so one of the biggest issues I feel like we've had as a band is turnover, and it hasn't been a huge issue. We swapped out 2 members in the first maybe year or 2 that we were a band. We've been together 5 or 6 years now, something like that. And what I wish I would have done now, or just what I would tell myself as a younger musician, is to be more patient with other people and realize that music is only worth something when you're sharing it with people, and people won't want to share it with you if you're a dickhead. So
exactly.
Yeah, I would go back and say be more patient, but also spend time learning about music. We kind of talked a little bit before we put the camera on about spending some time learning about music theory and how when everyone can communicate together, it's, in a common language, it's so much easier to express a thought to someone else and say, hey, this is so cheesy, right? But I'm hearing a Phrygian dominant riff, but to be able to say that and have someone say, oh yeah, I understand what you're talking about. It's huge. You don't need music theory to write music, but it's an excellent tool.
Another language. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
It's just another way to get to the same point together quicker.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic advice. I wish somebody told me that. So let's take a little bit of shift. You said that Paul also has an audio engineering degree.
Yeah.
And he does some of the writing. You have an audio engineering degree, and you do some of the recording and writing. So can we talk about what's your guys' process for writing music and releasing your music?
Well, and it's changed so much over the years too. So I have a degree in music production, and Paul has a degree in audio engineering, which I feel like pair and complement each other really well. But our writing process at this point has turned into such that each band member has a DAW, whether it's Reaper or Logic, and DAW being a digital audio workspace where you record music in. But each member has a DAW now, and we record parts at home and usually clean up our parts at home and then compile everything, and then it gets mixed.
Wow. So you guys don't even come into the same studio. You're just like, you here's this part, put it together. Somebody's in charge of doing the final.
Yes, usually that's pretty much
that is
how
really
it goes.
cool.
And sometimes like we'll come into the studio and record
Very
each
modern.
other. Well, I feel like it has advantages and disadvantages for sure. I know as myself, I can be really critical of parts and timing and things like that. And I don't want to over quantize something for many reasons. One, I'm lazy, and that takes so much time to track down all those transients and stuff. But two, like capture a good performance.
It's
know what I mean?
Sometimes it feels like you're taking the human performance
out
of it.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not against quantization. We quantize drums, guitars, vocals, and everything. But like a hard quantize is a thing that people have the option of doing.
They do, but sometimes it feels like you're taking the soul out of it. It's different for everybody, and every group has to figure out what that limit is.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. But yeah, I would say that that's maybe the only downfall would be, QC, but it's not really an issue as much with the group of guys that I'm working with because everyone is really good about recording their parts and getting them done right the first time. I know I've sent tracks off though and gotten like, hey man, what was that? I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go back and redo that. But
well, at least you guys have a open communication. That's the hardest thing to get.
Yeah, it's that. And so like Google Drive is a huge part of our workflow. So trading files and sessions and stems back and forward to each other so you can hear a project or a demo. Making demos is so hard. Demo-itis is so real. I wasn't sure if that was something you want to talk about. But,
no, that's a thing. It's a thing.
Yes, but being able to do that over the internet and everyone being able to work at home on their own makes our workflow so much faster, and it's just so easy. So
that's fantastic.
I like it. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah.
So do you guys use DrKid? How do you distribute your music?
Yeah, oh man, I gotta remember because we were using either CD Baby or DrKid, and we decided to switch, or we're in the process of migrating stuff right now. So I can't remember off the top of my head. If I remember correctly, though, I think DrKid is a much better option because I think we pay an annual fee with CD Baby and then pay additionally for each release. I don't think you have to do that with DrKid.
Nope, sure don't.
So, yeah, this is not.
I went through that exact same. No, I did that exact same journey. That's kind of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Started with CD Baby. I've migrated to DrKid just because the fees and the releasing process, and it's a one-time yearly fee versus every release. And,
it just makes a lot more sense.
And they're better, honestly, in my personal experience, they're better at tracking stats so much better than CD Baby.
Well, nice. Yeah. I feel like that's important, especially with the way that a lot of music is released nowadays, which I feel like the albums aren't so much a thing. I mean, albums are definitely still released, but singles are huge, spreading out singles over time because things are dead so fast.
They are. And that's just it. It wants constant content from everybody. Yeah. So now I understand even some of the projects that I'm doing, exact same thing where it's like I'm just going to do every 6 weeks a new single. And then after a while I'll just put an
compile
that into an album.
Yeah.
That way there's always fresh content. But it's a different age.
It's tough, man. Yeah. If you want to be relevant and have your voice heard, you really got to churn out content like crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's some great stuff in there. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And maybe let's get some insight on, you've done some studio work, done some recording in studios, and you've done your own work working as your own engineer.
Sure.
Can you talk about the, pros, cons of working a studio versus doing your own work?
Yeah, man. When someone else is pushing all the buttons, you really don't have to worry about much else but playing.
Right? You be a musician.
Yeah, and I think that that's really cool, but I also feel like it's much more high pressure, and I'm somebody that I play on stage and stuff, and it's a whole different beast, but in the studio I'm so anal and particular about things that I don't know that I don't know that I feel comfortable with someone like singing me, record Control Z, record Control Z, record Control Z over and over and over, for 20 minutes. So, I would say that the benefits of having someone else there's another set of ears that can listen to the takes you're doing and say, hey, maybe you're being too harsh. This is probably a good take. But the con is then you got the stress of somebody else there. And I prefer to record by myself and press buttons by myself.
Oh man, you were
kind of left alone.
Preaching to the choir. Yeah, exact same thing. Like where in the studio environment, it's nice to have that give and back. Sometimes there's good insight from another person hearing like maybe you shouldn't play this part. Maybe it's not translating as well as you thought in your head. Slow this down a bit. Those kind of things can help. But I'm the exact same way. Especially when recording guitars, you got to stop. And the Control Z thing is just my life. Like, oh, yeah. Well, and I feel not right.
No, I completely agree. And I feel like that's kind of part of the whole songwriting arc of, here's this skeleton demo where I have just the bare bones outline of this song. And then it moves to the next phase where input comes in and we sit down and talk about it, and then we polish it a little bit more process. And then we record it. And
I like that.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of cuts down on a lot of that. If you're recording final takes and you're in the studio and you have to say, hey, maybe that's not the right part, then maybe you shouldn't be in the studio recording the final part unless you're in a loosey-goosey type band. Yeah, which is totally okay.
Everybody's different, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of great improv solos done over the years. Steve Lukather, man,
oh my gosh,
holy crap! Wow, Alan Holdsworth, like what? But anyways, yeah.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. That's great insight, especially from somebody who's experienced both sides of that. So thank you. On that one.
Thank you.
Well, that was some great advice, and I really appreciate everything you've shared with us so far. Just invaluable, honestly.
Well, thank you. That's very
But let's go a little bit deeper into you. How did you get your start with music?
Oh man, I started out in band playing clarinet as a kid. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and I started playing clarinet, and it was awesome, but it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And my dad growing up was always really into 80s hair metal and stuff. And so one of the ways we didn't connect much at all. We didn't have a super great relationship, but one of the few ways that we did connect is going in the car, he'd turn on the radio onto the classic rock station, and it'd be like, who is this? Who's in the band? What year was this released? What album is this? Maybe a fun fact about the band or something like that. That's good parenting
me right there.
I loved it. And I got exposed to so much awesome 80s rock and metal and stuff like that. It really instilled this desire to play guitar for me. And so I was really lucky when I was 12 and I got a chance to have probably 10 guitar lessons with Steve Lynch, who formerly of the band Autograph. They did a song Turn Up the Radio in the 80s. It was pretty popular. He really helped pioneer 8-finger tapping just in general. I mean, he's an amazing player, and I feel like getting to play with him and just kind of seeing the enigma that he was as a 12-year-old kid walking into a music store and seeing this guy with a leather jacket and black shirt, black ripped up pants, pointed boots, which I'm now realizing that's what I wear all the time. Impressionable.
No influence.
But he was larger than life. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I wanted to be like that. And I think another a real moment for me, this is going to sound so cheesy, but the band Avenged Sevenfold, I stumbled across a video of theirs. This is before YouTube and stuff. We had on-demand cable. Okay. And they had a guitar lesson video from Guitar World on there. And this is way, way long ago.
That's cool.
And they were doing the sweep picking section from Backcountry, and it's a harmonized sweep picking section. And I just remember hearing that and being holy shit,
that's mind-blowing.
This is the thing, I want to do this thing. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the road, and it's been up and down, and I'm glad that I've stuck with it. I think music can be an incredibly rewarding thing for people, and it's a great expressive artistic outlet for sure.
So we were just talking about, and you were telling us, how you got your start, and there's been those ups and downs.
Absolutely.
How have you gone about, especially being from a smaller area, balancing that life and music balance?
Sure. I feel any sort of balance between two things, whether it be work and family or family and music or any sort of hobby, your crazy uncle that's obsessed with, his football team or whatever, it's moderation and making sure that you're spending time where your time is being valued. So I think that that's a big one for me, is when my time is being valued, even if it's by myself. If I'm valuing the time that I'm sitting there spending playing the guitar, that self gratification or self advocation is more than enough, I would say.
That is fantastic. And especially there's so many good, just tiny nuggets right in that little bit of things that it takes years for a lot of people to learn. But it's
true,
just,
man.
Just slipping them in there. What about with the band? What's some of the next big things coming up? You guys got any goals or any projects coming up?
Yeah, we'll probably start thinking about gearing up for a tour in spring or summer of next year. But we're pushing into a writing cycle right now.
Most people, this is their downtime, especially as a studio. Like this is our busy time of the year.
So logistically, we make our money to pay for the band by selling merch, and you can't sell merch really. I mean, we sell stuff online too, but you can't sell merch without going to shows. And in the wintertime, it just becomes, it's just not, it doesn't make a lot of sense with the roads the way they are to try and travel. And like gas gets crazy. And
you're putting your life on the line.
Exactly. And like we've had one or two like minor car accidents, in the couple of years that we've, it's just not worth it. Stay close to home in the winter, write music.
Right. Yeah. That's very smart. What about you as a songwriter and all the stuff you do? Are you doing anything individually? What are you working on musically? Just band stuff or anything individually?
I do band stuff, and I write a lot of, this sounds like really pretentious to say like etudes, but like I etude in the sense of a short practice piece,
right.
You know what I mean? And I find that that's really valuable. I think one thing that a lot of beginning musicians, myself included, did, and I still do, is maybe you'll play something and it won't be what you expected or what you wanted or the sound that you're desiring. Maybe you're trying to write a thick, metal riff or something like that, and instead you write something more like jangly. I find a lot of value in practice time and following those trails all the way out to the end. So if you've got like a weird little riff section that you like for 5 or 10 seconds and it just doesn't make sense to put anywhere else in a song, you should still continue to develop it, because there's a lot of good ideas that come in succession down the road as a result of that.
Holy crap. Yes. Great advice. Yes.
And you should be confident in your musical choices. I feel like it helps you define what your voice is, and you don't know what you sound like until you start exploring all these different branches and leaves of the tree of you're playing, which is like, that's a really cheesy analogy.
No, that's really great.
Yeah. So that, and I teach guitar lessons and stuff too. So
we'll talk about that. Let's not just hover over that. You do some great posts on your social media.
Thank you.
I think you call them noodles.
Yeah.
Noodling.
Little bowl of noodles.
Yeah. You're putting yourself out there and starting to get the ball rolling with doing lessons.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going? And are you learning anything from doing that?
Yeah, there's I can't remember. People attribute this to Einstein, I think, but I don't think he said it. But it's the idea of, if you can't explain something to a 3-year-old, then you don't know it well enough yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like in teaching people, and I've been really lucky that I've had the opportunity to teach a handful of people now, which is so cool. I kind of want to touch back on that in a moment if I can.
Of course.
But yeah, I feel like you learn a lot about what you really know and how you can communicate that, and what's really important when coming to playing guitar. I feel like another thing that you learn when you're teaching is you can't drive the conversation. You can't force someone to practice.
Mm-hmm.
They have to come, and they have to want to play, and they you know what I mean?
I
feel
know.
like a lot of people show up and they look at you.
Exactly. It's in teaching. It's in everything. It's consulting. You can only give them the tools and the information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And show them how to use it and let them do it at their pace.
Absolutely. And like that can almost be a frustration sometimes when you're teaching and you're showing someone the same thing over and over. But a way that I think to mitigate that is really let people lead, and don't have curriculum of some sort, but don't force someone to learn to read music and do all these kind of things. Follow the path that they want to do, and you can develop technique as you're learning songs and stuff, and things come up where hey, the cage system is also useful, and you kind of grow and develop like that.
Yeah, that's wow. That's great. And then you said you want to touch back on some of the people the people that you worked with, or what did you want to touch on?
Well, I wanted to give a thank you to someone from when I was a kid. We were talking about how I got my start.
Oh yeah.
And shortly before taking those guitar lessons with Steve, there was a guy from a church that we were going to for a time, and his name was John. And John, like, he knew that I wanted to learn how to play guitar. He played guitar and sang, and he would come over like for probably like 4 or 5 months. Once a week, he would drive over to my house on his lunch break, unpaid, and like sit there and teach me how to play. Puff the Magic Dragon was the first song I learned how to play. Oh, really? Yeah, absolutely. And like,
that's some deep knowledge we just got out of there.
Yeah, every rose has its thorn, like the more than words and those kind of things. And
good stuff.
He came over to my house and he just did that for free and like set me on this trajectory that completely changed my life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so what's really been cool is because of the situation that I'm in financially and with work and retirement and stuff, I've had the opportunity to be able to like give people lessons for free, and people that wouldn't have gotten lessons otherwise, and like kind of pass that torch forward. And that has been the most enriching and encouraging experience of my entire musical journey.
Wow.
To see someone that wouldn't have gotten to do that before, and like see that change. It's so cool.
It's the only thing, and when it comes to the end of life, just my personal thoughts on it, it's the only thing that really matters.
Yeah,
like what you can share and pass on to others. Way to go, man.
And I hope that I'm thinking about saying that, and it's like, oh man, that sounds like really like self-righteous.
No, not in the least.
I don't mean it in that way, but I hope that if there are other people out there that you've been playing for a little while, you can help people out around you, and it's pretty easy to do.
Exactly. You can't build a community unless you're sharing.
And seek out mentorship with people. There are so many people out there that want to share the knowledge that they have. So I've been really lucky with that too, and finding mentors, even in other Montana musicians. There's a awesome guitarist up in Kalispell with a band called Zephyria, and his name's Cody Betts.
Oh, okay.
Cody's just ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's just unfair to everyone else. And like I've reached out to him, like he's helped me out a lot, and
cool.
Talk to people. Yeah. Sorry for a little.
No,
little
that's exactly what everybody needs to hear, and we all need to hear. So
it's good. It's scary to do. I feel like it's scary to reach out to people. I don't like talking to people. I have a hard time when if the waitress brings me my food and it's like forked up.
Yeah.
I have a hard time being like, hey, I didn't order this, but do the scary thing and.
And speak up. It does pay off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're just kind of rounding out the interview. First and foremost, before we get into just some of my personal fun questions here at the end, thank you for doing this. And I know you should be a little bit afraid. Be wary. But thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for sharing everything you've done. I love your guys' work. And if everything with you and the band and, links to what he's doing, links to the band, everything will be down below in the notes. Please go take a listen. If you need some guitar lessons in anywhere in Montana or the Northwest, I believe you do the video ones as well.
Yeah,
so if you need some guitar knowledge, this is the man. It'll be down below.
We travel around. So, if we're in town, just ping me and do a little guitar
lesson. An amazing resource. Please, you should reach out to this guy.
That's very kind. Thank you so much.
So let's get on to right beside you. You brought along your guitar.
Sure, yeah.
I want to talk about that. Tell me about this thing.
Yeah, I like to bring a guitar to plink on anxiously because I'm not so good at talking to people. But this is it's a GOC Satya 7 is what it's called. I put some little cat inlays.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so actually, Cody Betts that I was telling you about up in Kalispell, he's endorsed by these guys.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah. And so like he brought one to a show and I got to play on it and it was super cool. And I decided that I wanted to get one. I know a lot of people have strong feelings about headless guitars. Mm-hmm. I've got back problems. And so any weight I can have. Yeah. And so, it's a 7-string. I've been writing a lot more on 7-string lately, which is so much fun. I'm so glad I waited to jump into a 7-string. I learned a 6-string really well at first. Well, really well at Dunning-Kruger, right? Like of course, I don't know anything really, But I feel like if you spend a lot of time working on a 6-string and like understanding drop tunings in 6-string, I keep this in a drop tuning. This becomes such a great tool because you have a 6-string and a drop tune guitar in one place. It's like the best of both worlds. But Yeah, I really love this thing. It sounds killer.
Thank you for sharing it. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks,
I've always
yeah.
seen a lot of your social media with that. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love it, man.
What
Yeah.
about just before this airs, there was an episode that we did on reviewing a rattlesnake cable.
Oh, heck
you
yeah.
got endorsed by them, didn't you?
Yeah. Hank is a really cool
Hank
guy.
is one of my personal heroes. So.
Yeah. So the cables, first and foremost, I've said that like 30 times this interview, but the cables are absolutely fantastic, and there are so many different customization options. I needed some kind of weird connect. I can't remember what the proper nomenclature is for it, but it's for like a Shure wireless pack, and I needed some like weird short jumper cable, and Hank had it done the same day in the braid.
He is so amazing.
Yeah, I met him kind of by chance one day. I friended him on Facebook. I knew some other people that played Rattlesnake Cables, and he made a post about, hey, can someone bring me a pack of guitar strings? And I was in town, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go do it. And so ran to ESP, a local music store here in town, and went and gave him some guitar strings. And he's like, here's a coupon for a discount. And I was like, sweet, thanks. So
that's Hank in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of how our relationship started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's him. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
What about anything of interest that you use pedal-wise? Or?
Oh, man. I am so lazy. So our whole live setup is all like DI. So we use all amp modelers and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and so everything plugs into a rack, comes off into in-ears, and then we have a snake that comes out of the back that sends off to front of house. So I play Helix.
Oh, nice.
And I really
I've heard
like
nothing but
it.
good things about them, and I've played it only shortly, but they're fantastic.
Well, I have to bring one over here sometimes.
Yes.
I play Helix. Our other guitarist plays a Helix as well, and I can't remember what our bassist is using right now, but the ability to be in and out of a venue with my gear, at least in one trip.
Right.
I've got
Speaking
a pedal
of
board
back
with
problems,
wheels.
that's exactly how you do it.
You're just right in. And so we'll use like FRFRs, like small, flat frequency response monitors for live, for us to have like some stage volume and stuff if they don't have like center speakers and stuff. But the Helix stuff and the digital modeling stuff is really, really awesome. It's just so nice. And I would say, like, on this topic, because I know it's a hot button for some people, like, nobody can tell the difference.
Nope.
Nobody can tell the difference.
It has gotten so good, you cannot.
Yeah.
Especially, I think Glenn Fricker, who does SMG YouTube, he's done such a great job with the shootouts and giving like A, B. You want to tell you what it is, nobody gets it right.
And like, you can, I would argue that you can feel a difference in playing a real amp sometimes. I would say that maybe that, and like that's being so particular. It's more about like the bloom of the distortion, like the sag of the amp, I think is the. But man, it's nobody can tell the difference unless you're showing up to a gig with like a little shitty Esteban practice amp. You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly. Yeah.
And somebody might be like, "Geez, that sounds like a buzzsaw," or like one of those little yellow Boss DS1s. The buzzsaw distortion is what that. But the digital stuff's great. I love it.
No, that's fantastic. And of course, as a guitar nerd, I got to know what you're doing. So making such great music with it.
Well, thank you. And Charvel guitars too. Aside from this GOC, I've got a couple of Charvels that I really like. I'm not like a big name brand loyal, purist or anything like that. I don't think you need a Gibson or anything. Find something that you can play it and just get to it. You know what I mean? But I really like the Charvel necks, the roasted necks are just like the neck profiles are just disgusting. It's so nice. It's so
built
fun
for
to
speed,
play.
those things.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, I just want to say again, thank you so much. Your time was so valuable to so many people just beyond this. So
that's
thank
really
you
kind.
So much. And I look forward, you guys, if you're in the area, or in the Northwest, find a way to see a show. Go listen to music on Spotify, Apple, whatever you listen to. Visit the websites. You're going to be very grateful you did. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mike Vandersanden, and great to have him. So
thank you.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you. Bye.